This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Hey guys, time to get in on the action for the biggest moments in basketball with PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projections, place your entry, and win up to 100 times your money. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit of up to $100. Just download the PrizePicks app and use the code GET100. That's code GET100 on PrizePicks for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks. Pick more. Pick less. It's that easy.
Welcome back everyone to the X-Cast X-Files Podwatch. This is episode 62 of our series covering the X-Files, and today we're taking a look at Triangle and Dreamland. I'm your host today, Carl Sweeney, and I'm joined by Baz Greenland. Hi Baz.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good, and I'm looking forward to talking about both of these.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, let's just head straight into it. So, both of these episodes were broadcast on American television in November 1998. Triangle is the third episode of the 6th season. It was written and directed by Chris Carter. And of course, this is the episode in which Mulder is taken aboard a ship called the Queen Anne before realising he has travelled back in time to September 1939 and the Second World War has just begun. Well, I do know, Baz, that you regard this as your favourite episode of the entire series, don't you?
It really is, yeah. No, I do love a lot of stuff about this episode, yes.
Alright, so I'll just give you the chance to tell us a bit about that then. So why exactly do you love it so much?
I think because I really do like when the X-Files goes quite experimental. I think this is a really experimental, fun episode. I think it's definitely also Chris Carter at the top of his game as well. The main thing is it's such a lot of fun, and so stylistically it's really well done with the kind of the illusion of these kind of long tracking shots as well, and just the kind of the fun ability to kind of have the actors playing different versions of the same characters and so on. It's just a really good, a kind of enjoyable load of fun from beginning to end for me, really.
Yeah, I enjoy it a lot too. Although, I mean, I wouldn't say it's my favourite, but I definitely see where you're coming from. I think my favourite individual sequence is Scully at the FBI.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, kind of prowling the corridors and trying to track down the information and everything. So what did you think of that sequence? I mean, I think it's just a very dynamic, intense performance by Gillian Anderson in that sequence. That's why I love it so much, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I'm pretty. I mean, I know for the first one, there's lots of kind of going through dark corridors where you can see they kind of have the illusion of a tracking shot, but actually you can see there's some clever kind of fades in and out there. But I think, as far as I kind of studied quite closely when I watched it again for this pod watch, and I was wondering, is it a one shot? And it kind of certainly feels like it's a one shot scene as well, which is great. I do love tracking shots in movies and TV as well. Again, it gets a show of Sky you don't really see it. You see her desperation and her frustration, when she's trying to get the answers, and going up against Kirsch and his secretary, and then basically just beating Spinner down trying to get the answer out of him, and then of course you've got the Skinner kiss, which is just so much fun as well. But it's just little moments like you see kind of her head in hands as she realises she's made a mistake, and then the kind of yes in the lift when she gets the answers. It's just it's really, really good, and I think she delivers it all in quite a simple way as well.
Yeah, and her performance kind of ramps up in intensity as it goes along, which is nice. And I think there definitely are some cuts in there. I think when the elevator doors close,
yeah, possibly,
and also the moment where she stands on somebody's foot and the camera kind of whips around. There's one there, and there probably are some more, but it's definitely quite well disguised, I think.
Yeah, the illusion certainly works.
Yeah, definitely. Are there any other standout performances from this episode to you? Because like we've mentioned, there are people playing double roles, and some actors having to do their best German and so on.
Obviously, William B. Davies is the perfect Nazi, isn't he? So the cigarette smoking man Nazi is perfect. You couldn't have it any better than that, I think. And he plays it really, really well. And even though he's German, I'm not sure whether the pronunciation is great. My German's, I know a little bit of German, not brilliantly, but he delivers it so well. Poor Skinner as a Nazi as well. Obviously, he tries some help. He helps him out at the end, but he's that kind of going back to that role where you never quite knew what side he was on.
Yeah.
I guess in one way it doesn't work as well is Gillian Anderson as this kind of this woman with kind of gusto, trying to stand up to the Nazis. It maybe doesn't work quite as well, but then it's because Scully's such a great character. I think it's but it's fun. And one thing I like Kirsch as well, because you've had him, he's a great villain. He's someone you love to hate, even though he's technically just playing by the rules most of the time. He's not actually an outright villain, but it's nice to see him sort of play this possibly a slightly dodgy Jamaican actor, but play this kind of hero rising up as the rebellion starts on the ship as well. So yeah, that's fun too.
It's interesting that in the start of season 6 you see a lot of Kirsch, but then by the time you get to One Son, he's kind of like packed off away quite quickly, which I always thought was a bit of a shame.
Well, but I think that's why it's one of the big successes of season 8, as well as obviously the kind of it's fresh and new, and Dogger comes into it. I think having Kirsch back in season 8 and in through season 9 makes he's kind of a good recurring type character in the Far 2 series.
Yeah, I was always glad to see him brought back as well, and I always think James Pickens Jr. does a good job.
He does, yeah.
Yeah, so we've already talked a little bit about the visual style of the episode, so the long takes, but also like the split screen as well. There's some good use of the split screen technique.
It's that bit when Scully comes towards the screen, you got Mulder and the alternate Scully going across, and they cross over as well. It's again, a lot of fun, that one.
Yeah, that's another moment I really like from this episode too. Yeah. Do you think this episode, if it had been done in a more conventional fashion for the X-Files, do you think the story was compelling enough in its own right to work, or do you think the visual style is really what makes it here?
It's certainly the visual style, I think, and the idea of actors playing different versions of the characters. I think it is my favourite episode, and because it's so experimental and because it's so much fun. But there are probably a couple of plot holes in there. Yeah, done kind of quite straight. I don't think it would have worked quite. I mean, it would have been a good, memorable episode. The idea of Morrow throwing back to the start of World War II, but I think things like how did he jump off the ship and get back to the present doesn't really make a lot of sense, and how to travel through time. There are some things that don't, and I guess it kind of works because it's so fun and so experimental, and the Bermuda Triangle kind of gives Carter a bit of a kind of leeway to go, well, it's the Bermuda Triangle, it's all a bit weird anyway. So I think that's why it works, but it works because it's quite kooky, it's quite fun and quite unconventional. I think, if you did this quite straight, you'd be going, well, I enjoyed that episode. There were some really good ideas there, but what about how did the time travel work and so on? So I think it works because it's unconventional.
Yeah, I guess I feel the same way, that the heightened style of it, like you say, gives him a bit of license to do what he wants. Yeah. I think it would be remiss of us not to mention that there's a couple of notable kisses in the episode.
Yeah.
So Scully and Skinner, first of all, in the elevator.
I think that started off. There was a lot of kind of later on Scully and Skinner ship has kind of emerged. I think this is where it started, definitely, and that's a lot of fun. And it's never spoken of again.
No, although there's some funny stuff in, I think it's Hollywood AD, kind of like insinuations about Scully and Skinner. That's quite funny as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think as well, obviously, you got the Mulder and Scully kiss, but it's not a Mulder and Scully kiss.
Yeah. But
from Mulder's point of view, it kind of is, and that's interesting. And obviously, he does say, "I love you," and "I love you" at the end. And I love her reaction of, "Oh God, what's he doing now?" It's brilliant. It's so well done. But yeah, in a way, it's like Mulder gets to kiss Scully and admit his love for her. But at this stage, she's certainly not ready, whether she acknowledges it or not. So it's kind of a good way to kind of fulfill what the shipper's desires at this point in time. I was watching it with my wife, actually, and she hadn't seen this episode for years. And she was like, "Oh, she loved it." And I said, at the time when the show was on, were you in Mulder and Scully ship? She said, "Oh, absolutely. I was desperate for them to get together." So I personally wasn't, but maybe I was. I don't know. I just kind of always thought they were more worked. So at this stage, it's a platonic friendship. But yeah, it was interesting. She really enjoyed that. So I imagine at the time, ship was like yes everywhere when they kind of got that kiss and that confession of love. Obviously, it'll be a whole other series until Millennium when they actually do have their kind of first kiss. But yeah, it works. It's fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, unless you count forehead kisses as well, because there were a couple
of
those. But on the lips, definitely.
Yeah.
And of course, it comes hot on the heels of Fight the Future with the aborted kiss.
Yeah,
and I think and everything.
That's why he does it, because it's very kind of self-knowing as well. Chris Carter's kind of, in a way that I like some of the X-Files episodes do kind of acknowledge the audience, don't they, and acknowledge the concepts and kind of make fun of them. I think this is kind of a slightly more sly way of doing that.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you have any quibbles with the episode? I know we mentioned there may be a couple of points where the logic's not watertight, But is there anything else that you think kind of is a bit off or anything like that?
Not really, I think, but I think the logic doesn't quite work. It's the insanity works, but it's a mad episode. But the logic doesn't hold up really much. But apart from that, I just love it from end to. I can watch it over and over again. This episode, it's just so much fun. So I know other people might have other quibbles. I don't know if you do, but for me, no, it's just a blast from beginning to end.
Well, I mean, I like the episode a lot. The only thing, a couple of points where, it's so dark, but I'd like to be able to see a little bit more of what's going on. Like when they're hauling him onto the ship and everything. And like you say, it does allow like the camera to move around and the editing to take place. So, I occasionally get the feeling that I'd like to be able to see a bit more. And I don't know, because like some of the dialogue is like deliberately like very cartoonish, isn't it? In a kind of like pulpy, almost like a Raiders of the Lost Ark type vein.
Definitely. And I think it's quite interesting that Mulder just kind of blatantly just throws out historical facts. Technically, he could just change history because he throws out this information that if any of these people did survive, it could have changed the history forever. So he's for someone who's kind of acknowledging and realising that he's actually stuck in the past and actually history could be changed forever, he's quite blatant about just throwing out there key bits of information, isn't he?
Yeah, he's very cavalier about it. Is there anything else, Baz, on this one? Did you just want to like sum it up, or?
I think it's just a blast from beginning to end. It's a completely mad concept, and I think it works. You said by playing for fun rather than play. If it had it been played completely straight, it would have been as successful. But it's just really experimental, really fun, and I just love everything about it, to be honest.
Alright, so Dreamland is episode 4 of the 6th season, and this one was written by Vince Gilligan, John Shiban and Frank Spotnitz, and directed by Rob Bowman. And this is the episode, the first in the two-parter. This is the one in which the agents attempt to visit Area 51, where Mulder swaps identities with Morris Fletcher, played by Michael McKean. So what are your thoughts and general feelings about this episode, Baz?
It's not what I love, actually. I mean, I was reading for this podcast because these are 2 episodes that are really enjoyable. It's kind of got that sense of season 6 of being a bit more self-referential, a bit more knowing, a bit more fun as well. I think which works in the kind of light-hearted nature of season 6 works really well. I think it then goes in season 7, and I think that the light-hearted tone continues and not as successfully. But I think this is kind of really a second win for the show, and I really like Dreamland because again it's a lot of fun. I think one thing I realised watching it is that there isn't any other two-parter anywhere really in the show's history that is non-mythology, and this is kind of the closest. I know there's a little bit of aliens in there, but it's very, very, very loose on the kind of mythological aspects of the show. And I kind of wish actually at the call, they had up to like 26 episodes, 25 episodes a season sometimes. I wish they'd had more two-parters that weren't purely about the conspiracy. We got some sequels. The closest probably is like Squeeze and Tombs, and then you had sequels to Pusher and Irresistible and so on. But there was never the opportunity to kind of have a really good cliffhanger outside of mythology, and have just really kind of expand the concept beyond the kind of 45-minute format. So it's nice that Dreamland actually gets to do that, which also means that I actually prefer the first part of Dreamland, the second part, because again it's quite fun and it gets to have a laugh with the characters of Mulder in a way that maybe had it been a 45-minute story may have been a bit more condensed.
I'm glad we've got someone on who's positive about Dreamland, because I don't like this episode very much at all,
really?
To be honest. No. All the writers always talk about how this had to be a 2-parter so they could get everything in, and I just don't see it. I think there was absolutely no need for this to be 2 episodes. Although I do agree with your general point that there are like other episodes in the series that could easily have been like expanded to a 2-parter. I don't know. I don't find the comedy in these episodes particularly funny, and I guess that's just a subjective thing.
Yeah, comedy itself is very subjective, isn't it? So I guess everyone, and maybe that's why, I don't know. I think the light-hearted nature of season 6. I think while I think a lot of fans think of it quite positively, I think I can see why people were turned off as well, because it wasn't quite the dark, gritty nature of the earlier seasons.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's like very well performed and everything, but I guess like the stuff with the family and the kids when Mulder's swapped. I mean, it's like a very broad kind of family sitcom type scenario, isn't it? And
See, that's my favourite part of the episode. But I think because I like what it does, it takes Mulder completely out of his comfort zone. The idea when you get Morris Fletcher's Mulder, who basically hooks up with the kind of quite haughty secretary, and he's kind of a bit sleazy, and obviously Mulder, there's a whole thing going for the entire series of his love of porn. He kind of, you imagine he's had quite a few kind of one night stands in the past before his work completely took over, and that's believable. But the idea of Mulder in a kind of family situation is hilarious to me, and I just adore the scenes, like the breakfast scene when he's asked about the nose ring job and mixing up the kids' names and stuff, and then caught watching porn by his wife. And it's just so well done because he's so out of his comfort zone. And is that scene later on when, again, my favourite scene, as well as that one, is the scene when he's woken up by his wife and she confesses, "Oh, you don't love me anymore. You're not attracted to me." And he's trying to play along because he's like, "What the hell do I do here?" And it's just that scene when she walks away and he does that face, which is fantastic. Followed by immediately, I don't know who Scully is, followed by Scully at the door, "Hi, I'm Dana Scully." It's just perfect because it's I love the layer of comedy, and I think which Vince Gilligan does quite well over the course of the show. And I just love that kind of the awkwardness of trying to reconcile with someone he doesn't even know, and then reassure that he does love her, and then Scully turning up, and then the wife going completely bonkers, which is understandable, and throwing his stuff out of the house. I love that, but I don't know, maybe if you're not a fan of that, I could see why it doesn't work because it's quite a big part of the episode.
Yeah, I don't like any of those moments you mentioned. I mean, I actually prefer the second part of Dreamland because the comedy gets dialed down a bit as the drama kind of comes to the fore a little.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing is that I think in this first part, it sort of bothers me a bit that Scully is so slow to catch on. Almost as if it's kind of bends over backwards to kind of to keep her a step behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. It's much more Mulder a story than a Scully one. I think it's probably falling back on old tropes of the more skeptic non-believer. I don't know. It does feel a bit the kind of the betrayal at the end when he gets arrested. You do at that point see the realization kick in. Oh, hang on, maybe he was right all along, and it is Mulder. But it's kind of too late at that point. But it does. It is. I admit that's probably a bigger failing of the episode. As much as I love it focused so much on the Mulders that it doesn't really give Scully a lot to do apart from react to what's happening. And it does make her kind of seem a little bit slow on the uptake sometimes.
Yeah, well, it just feels like they had to keep that moment until the climax of the first part, didn't it? So yeah, it does feel a little tough to take for me, anyway. Are
you a fan of the scene when Mulder dances across the mirror of the wardrobe?
No, I think it's one of the worst moments in the entire series.
Okay. Different visual humour, I guess. Because though I did watch it quite closely, I was thinking, Michael McKean and David Duchovny actually matching up, and they're not really. At first, when you remember, it's really great they match up exactly. They move their legs and their face at the same time. It's not quite spot on when you watch it again, but I kind of forgive it. But it's not as perfectly done as maybe it could have been.
Yeah, I hate it because I'll tell you why. I don't hate Dreamland actually. I may have given that impression, but it's just that some of the comedy is a bit too much for me. But I do hate the mirror scene, and it just feels completely vain and indulgent to me. And when you read that they practice for a week and a half to get ready for it, it just feels like an absolute waste of time. And the other thing I don't like is the music that's played over the top of that scene. I think everyone involved should be ashamed of themselves, to be honest. If you listen to the audio commentary on Jose Chung's From Outer Space, just as a kind of a tangent, but Darren Morgan makes a bit of a wisecrack about how if it had been a season 6 episode, the music would have been very different. I can't remember exactly what he says, but he makes a bit of a joke. To me, I think the best example of that, or the worst actually, is the mirror scene in Dreamland. I mean, it just doesn't feel organic to me. It feels like something that is included because Duchovny and McKean wanted it as a bit of a showcase. Do you know what I mean?
Possibly. I didn't realise it's been a week and a half. Cause it feels like they spent an hour practicing it because as I enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun, but it's not perfectly executed. And to spend a week and a half, they could have done it better. Maybe they definitely could have done it better.
Yeah. I mean, I really do like Michael McKean, actually. I think he's well cast.
Yeah, they do bring it back a couple more times, don't they? Which
Yeah.
I never think as successful as the first time, but I think I can see why they did it. He certainly brought him back.
Well, I think he was one of the elements that does actually, I mean, the Lone Gunmen had a short-lived spin-off series, and he appears in that, and then again in Junk the Shark, and of course in Free of a Kind in season 6. I guess I feel like he was well suited to that kind of story as well.
I think he would. Yeah, I agree. There's I do like his connection. I mean, I've only seen some of the Lone Gunmen. I haven't seen the episode with him in that series, but I've obviously seen Jump the Shark and Three of a Kind. I think the best things of him are the dynamics with the Lone Gunmen in those episodes.
Yeah. Are there any other particularly noteworthy moments? I mean, I like the fact that Kirsch appears. And I just enjoy the fact that Kirsch is around so much in the first part of season 6. Yeah. But is there anything else that you like about these episodes that you want to talk about?
I guess just the other thing is the actual X-File itself. And I think, you're right, it's explored much more in the second half. I like the idea of things merging us, not just the body swap. And it's the scene where the old Indian, the Native American lady, is basically impersonating the military officers. Great. I love that scene. And I only do a similar thing in the second episode as well. So I like the idea of the kind of body swapping with that, and the idea of this lizard fused into the rock as well. Some really kind of good ideas there. And it kind of builds on this idea of using alien technology from places like Roswell to create military aircraft, which goes all the way through into season 10 as well. So there's some really good ideas, and obviously that gets expanded much more, which I think it does become a bit more serious and a bit more X-File-y in the second half. So I can see, for that reason, I can see why you like the second half more. The first half, you're absolutely right, it's pure indulgence, but I always enjoy watching the episode. It's a lot of fun, but I think maybe it needs to be watched with part 2.
I think I used to like this one a bit more. I can't really remember. I think I'm just getting old and jaded and
cynical. Old and grumpy old man syndrome.
I mean, I do like when the character of Fletcher's wife, when she's not being called upon to be very shrill and everything. I do like her performance.
Yeah, that scene. I mean, that scene when she kind of goes, "You don't love me," is actually very, very nicely played. And you got the comedy element of Duchovny's as Mulder's going kind of, how do I react to this? This is not me at all. But actually, if you kind of put that aside, her performance when she's this woman who had years and years of marriage and a secretive husband who's away all the time doing God knows what, and you do actually really feel for her that she is trying to maintain this family together, and she's kind of on her own, and she is feeling our love. So I think why, even though it's quite short, when she starts throwing his clothing out the house. And when Scully turns up, I think you do kind of feel for her as well, and it's and I think you find later on in that Jump the Shark that actually he's moved on from his family and now has kind of bimbos on the boat kind of thing, kind of like going on. And I kind of weird feel sorry for her, or kind of quite happy for her. Eventually she just gets rid of him because it's not a happy marriage, and I think she's one of she's quite a sympathetic character in that respect.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely a good thing for her that the relationship's over anyway, ultimately. All right, Baz, cheers.
It's been great.
Thank you. Interesting as ever. Tomorrow on the podcast, it's Dreamland 2 and How the Ghosts Stole Christmas. In the meantime, please find us on Twitter at the X_cast or on Facebook, where you can search for Xcast and find our page or our group, which is called X-Files Basement, the Xcast podcast fan group. Until next time, listeners, trust no one.